Hiya. Hope you're doing well this evening. I'm going to get right into it. No BS whatsoever. I listened to this today. I revisited this. I knew I wanted to do the video. I wasn't sure when. And I listened to this today, and it still sounds great. I wanted to talk about it. My life with the thrill kill cult, or thrill kill cult, or TKK, whatever you want to call them. People call them all kinds of different things. I personally call them thrill kill. When I refer to these people with my friends and fans of the band, I say thrill kill. They will always be thrill kill to me. And I think this might be my favorite album from them. I've always kind of felt that way. All three of their first albums, there are different times of the day and different times of the year where I might slightly shift my opinion. I love Sexplosion. I think between Sexplosion and this one, it depends on my mood. It depends on the day in terms of which one is my favorite. I love Confessions of a Knife too. Their first three records are a lot of fun. But after I listened to this today, I thought maybe this is it. I do love this album, and this was my intro to them. This and the 12-inch that I'll talk about here. All three of the records I'm going to talk about today came out in 1988, and when I think about this, it blows my mind that I've been listening to these records for 35 years. I don't even know what happened. How does time pass this fast? I don't know. It freaks me out. 35 years, man. That is crazy to think about. This is a really fun album. And as most of these albums I talk about, they've all been pecked and dissected and prodded and poked and infiltrated about as much as critically possible. All I can ever do when I do these videos is offer my experience with them. This was my intro. Now picture me, a 15-year-old kid, seeing this cover. It kind of freaked me out. Now, try to picture if you got into these guys after that, or if you've got into these guys during the last 20 years or whatever. Try to picture that you didn't know anything about this band. You knew nothing about them. You're 15, so you're young, you're impressionable. Things can still freak you out. You're not a hardened, cynical bastard yet. And you see this imagery. Right away, when I saw the cover of this, I was a little freaked out. I was like, what the fuck? I'm not religious either. I never have been. But this cover, it struck me. I was like, who are these guys? What in the hell? This scary, spooky imagery? What the heck is going on here? Things like this, your worst enemy is your God. I was really intrigued with that. I thought that was cool. You've got this. What's going on there? What's happening here? What's happening here? Actually, I'll show you what's happening here. I have a oddity to show you. A lot of you, even you Thrill Kill fans, might not know this. Some odd religious imagery. I'm always fascinated by religious imagery and voodoo type imagery, and I think that's Frankie Nardiello, isn't it? Right there. But I didn't know anything about him or his band, Thrill Kill. I didn't know. Frankie Nardiello, he's the main chief member of Thrill Kill Cult. He also recorded with Al Jourgensen. They had a record that came out in, I think, 1980, right? The band was called Special Affect. I have that record. It's pretty good, actually. It's the earliest record you'll see Al's name on, and Nardiello for that matter. Pretty good record. It has aged relatively well, I would say. Not a bad album at all. But yeah, my 15-year-old brain saw this and I was like, whoa, shit. And it's on Wax Tracks too. So yeah, when I was a mere slip of a youth, I was fascinated with this. I hadn't even heard the music yet, and I was like, wow, I'm in. I want to hear this. So I brought it home, cracked it open, was confronted with you have the lyrics here and some more images, naked ladies and such. So it was just some fascinating imagery. I didn't know quite what to think of this. Are they devil worshippers? Is this a joke? Are they into voodoo? What's going on here? And I needed to know. I needed to get this record home and check it out. Here are the labels. This is on Wax Trax. I don't know if this came out in Europe. Did it come out in Europe? I don't know. Maybe. I know Wax Trax had a European division, so it probably did. This is the US one. This is the very copy I bought 35 years ago, man. And when I listened to the record, I had no idea what to make of it. I truly didn't. It was kind of freaky. It was all over the place. I still like the production. I think that the dated, I don't know, the dated production sounds are cool. They work. When I say dated, I don't mean that in a bad way. It just sounds like it was a record that came out in the late 80s, but it's really good. And I think this is their darkest album, without a doubt. Every album after this, they definitely got more and more disco. This is their least disco album. There isn't much disco at all on this record. Not much at all. It's dance music, but it's very the production is very lo-fi sounding. It's not lo-fi, but it's rough. It's a tough sounding. It's a tough sound. Very enjoyable, and they never really quite made another sound like this. Confessions of a Knife definitely has remnants of what this album sounds like, but for the most part, it's pretty unique in terms of the Thrill Kill catalog. It stands on its own. I think that's why it might be my favorite. Nothing else they ever did sounds like this, and the sound is scary. It's very moody. Like I'll go through the tracks here. The first track, Heresy, that song always reminded me of, like, you know, monks in hoods walking through the graveyard getting ready to sacrifice a virgin or something. It's like a dirge. It's like a spooky haunted house dirge. People marching through the grave to do something nasty. Really, really cool intro. I love the intro. Excommunication, really cool song. Great title, obviously, but a nice sound to that one. Do You Fear for Your Child, Easy Girl, Universal Blackness. I think Universal Blackness, arguably their best song they ever did, in my opinion. I've always loved that song. If they ever had a truly dark, moody, atmospheric song, it's that one. Sampling, tons of samples on here. This was back in the day where you didn't get sued for everything yet. It was just about to happen. It was right around the corner. That all happened in the late 80s when bands started getting sued. So this happened right before that. It's tons of horror movie samples on here. Lots of it's mainly horror. I was going to say sci-fi, but not really. It's all old weird horror movies and dark religious movies that had something to say about the evils of religion. And yeah, you know, most of the songs on side one here are kind of have that mood. Universal Blackness for sure. Universal Blackness is one of their best songs, maybe my favorite. Sometimes I wish they went back to this sound a little bit. Because, yeah, everything after this is just more or less in your face disco. Sorry, Thrill Kill fans. It is what it is. You can't really deny it. Confessions of a Knife hung on to some of the sounds here, but even that record had a lot of disco on it. And then once they got to Sexplosion, it was game over, man. It was all disco. I have no problem with disco, by the way. This record just happens to be their most unique sounding album, the most unique sound in terms of their other stuff. I think that's why it's special. And it's my intro to them. I'll always have a special place in my heart because this is how I was introduced to the band. I'm holding the record over here because it's the only place you have the track listing other than the cover. Each one of these little photos is a title, but it's hard to read. It's kind of dark in here. So I'm looking at the label right now. And This Is What the Devil Does. Yes, that's one of their most famous songs. There are multiple versions of that. Actually, the first track they ever released on their 12-inch that came out before this, it's called The First Cut. That's a version of This Is What the Devil Does. And then The Devil Does Drugs is also a version of that. I'll talk about those in a minute. Cool song. It was the obvious single, the most, poppy sounding song. These Remains. That is an awesome song. That is one of the most arresting, heavy, intense thrill kill songs. Maybe their most. Yeah. These Remains and Universal Blackness are arguably my favorite thrill kill songs. There are a few others that would come down the pike that compete with those two, but those two songs are really cool. Very intense, very dark. They would never get dark like that again. Maybe a few moments on Confessions of a Knife. They got close to it. Love those songs. These Remains is a fantastic track. The vocals are very intense and immediate. The music is produced really well. Excellent song. It all comes together just perfectly on that track. On This Rack, Gateway to Hell, Scene 1, Seen 'Em All. Those last two tracks are really up-tempo, high energy. I wouldn't say disco, more rock. Electronic rock sounding stuff. There's the track listing. Really cool record. I think if I had any issue with this album, I feel like the tracks are sequenced incorrectly. If I had put this album together, and I do this, I've recorded all these records into my digital files, and I rearranged the track order. I don't think the order of I like the songs, they're just not in the right order. Like, I think Universal Blackness and These Remains would have made more sense to be at the end. It's hard following those songs. They're very dense and very heavy and excellent. I thought following those with On This Rack and Gateway to Hell, those should have been earlier in the album. They're more high energy. The album, I think, would have been more powerful if it ended on more of a darker, moody note rather than these up-tempo jams. It's just my opinion. But the album works better when you rearrange the songs, in my opinion. In my own archives, when I rearrange the tracks myself and listen to the album, I do it in a slightly different order. Just makes more sense to me. I enjoy it. I like all the songs. They're just not quite sequenced the way I would have done it. Excellent album, though. I think most days I would say this is my favorite Thrill Kill album. It's their most unique in comparison to their other catalog. Just a very unique sound. Not many albums sound like this. So imagine, if you will, hearing this in 1988 when things really didn't sound like this. I wouldn't really call this industrial. I've already talked about what I think industrial is. I don't think this is industrial, really. It's got elements of it. I, I just think this is dance music, really, at its core. Dance and rock, lots of spooky samples. I don't hear a lot of industrial here. I know that's what people consider this as. I don't really think so. Industrial is super experimental, noisy shit. That's not what this is. This is very honed, very slick, albeit a lo-fi, fuzzy sound. But this is produced and mixed very well. I don't know that I would say this is experimental. Tiny little elements are, but overall, not at all. Excellent record. Always love listening to this, and I've enjoyed revisiting this week. Now, this is actually the first record I ever heard from Thrill Kill. This is their first 12-inch. And first cut, This Is What the Devil Does. It's a more dancey version. It's on the 12-inch, you know. They're both dance. All the versions are dancey. This is a little more dancey than the one on the album. Excellent B-sides, Shaka Point 6 and Resisting the Spirit. Excellent B-sides. Let me show. Oh, you get the old school Wax Trax insert. This is old school. This is the earliest version of these, man. And I used these. Yes. I remember I had a Revolting Cocks t-shirt. Had the big sexy land image on it. In fact, this might have been, yeah, Revolting Cocks, same basic design as Big Sexy Land LP cover. These are 4-color on white shirts. $8. Consider that. Back in 1988, it was $8 for a shirt. Good luck doing that now. Jesus. Can't find any shirt, no matter what the quality, for less than 25 now. Here are the labels. Labels. That's the B-side. Look at that image, too. Spooky shit. You don't even need to be religious to be into this stuff. You can't get any more non-believing atheistic than me, but that kind of imagery still kind of concerns you, you know. And that was in time I would learn that was kind of Frankie Nardiello's thing. Like, and I definitely learned this after watching the Wax Trax um, documentary. He talks about it a little bit, but when you're young, you see this imagery and you're kind of freaked out by it. Well, I wasn't freaked out by this. I just enjoyed this, but it's kind of hardcore, man. If you're a kid, you got naked women and broken swords and sacrilegious shit. It's cool. It's fascinating. You think it's dangerous. I would learn later on, though, that Nardiello is just having fun. He was just pasting things together. He in the documentary, he said he would get letters from devil worshippers thinking that he did worship Satan. And Nardiello was like, I was just having fun. I was just cutting and pasting images. I thought it was funny. And when you know that, this music gets even more fun. It doesn't have to not be threatening. It can be anything you want it to be. And that's the point of this, I think. It's fun music. It sparks your creativity, your sense of imagination. That's why this music is so fun, you know. Here is Some Have to Dance, Some Have to Kill. This label, I've seen it with a Jesus face on here too. Those are the only two I've seen. Are there more than two? I've always had the Mary one, and the spindle hole goes through the eye. I think it did that with the Jesus one too. This is, you get the little crosses, psychedelic shit going around the crosses, all leading into Mary's face. There's the other label. This is when they just went full disco and never turned back, man. This came out at the end of 1988. Everything they've done since is pretty dancey. I am not complaining. But as I've been saying, what makes the first album, I See Good Spirits, I See Bad Spirits, so unique is it just has its own sound. Nothing that they ever did again would sound like it. This is an excellent single. The A side is great, Nervous Zions. I love that track. Like a 10-minute groove. You drop the needle down and you dance your ass off. And another mix of This Is What the Devil Does. It's called The Devil Does Drugs. Nervous Zions is cool too because it samples Ministry. Obviously, Nardiello and Jourgensen knew each other. It samples Tonight We Murder, which was the B-side to Stigmata, one of the finest B-sides to one of the finest singles of all time. I do a video on Ministry, Land of Rape and Honey, by the way. If you haven't seen it, I'm not gonna fight you off if you want to watch it. Ministry, Land of Rape and Honey is one of my favorite singles or albums. Sorry, this is one of my favorite. Thrill Kill 12 inches. I love this. Awesome stuff. And anytime you sample Tonight We Murder, you know it's going to be good. Now this is just an oddity. I'm going to hold up. I don't know how many of you know this. I found this, I think, at a record convention years ago in the 90s. After after I had I See Good Spirits, I See Bad Spirits. In fact, I thought it was that album when I found it, but look at this cover. Look at the images. It's a sound effects record. But I saw this. I saw that and thought, wait a minute, what's going on here? I didn't know. I just thought this was a cover, you know. I thought this was Thrill Kill's cover. And then I saw this. I was like, wait a second. One of those little happy accidents. That's when Thrill Kill's sense of humor started making sense. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah. They love sampling. Who knows where they get their samples, but they clearly took their cover art from this and kept this image, the best image on here, let's face it. This is just a sound effects record. This came out in the 60s. I thought you Thrill Kill fans would enjoy this little piece of trivia. Check that out. Thrill Kill, having a good time, man. Cutting and pasting images for your enjoyment and your bemusement and your confusion and it's in your fun. It's been fun liking this band over the years. I will admit I haven't listened to much of what Thrill Kill has done in Jesus, well over 20 years. I think the tinny bass lacking disco thing it's tired, but that's what they do. They're having fun. I never bemoan anybody for doing that. I'm not into it. The first 3 Thrill Kill albums are what I know, and that's what I'll be talking about on this channel. After Sexplosion, I really have no clue. I've heard some things they've done, and none of it's really struck me. Great album, though. Arguably my favorite. I think it is. Sexplosion's close. A great way to enter the music biz, this album. Thrill Kill, we're having fun exposing the hypocrisy of our belief systems and cutting and pasting to our amusement. And being sacrilegious, and that's always a good thing in my book. Anyone who's not afraid to be sacrilegious, you're A-okay. Thrill Kill will always be a band I deeply respect just for pushing buttons and boundaries. That should be respected too. It really should. This is a band that enjoys offending people in good spirit. They're not out hurting people, but I think it's good to challenge people's expectations and offend people sometimes. We all should be. It expands your mind. In these times where people's thinking has gotten more narrow, I think groups like this are healthy. It makes you think. Maybe it might even make you buy an album that isn't something you would normally think of. It worked on me. I love this record. All right, thanks. I'll talk to you next time. Bye.